gonna be safe and sound tonight.
Hello everyone, and this talk is about agendas and how that changes the goals of an institution and of a person. And the comparison of my agenda versus the agendas of the New World Order and Congress and our government and the society that we are fleeing from at such a rapid pace. So if we go down memory lane and we think about the way things used to be, there was such a focus on college. There was such a focus on education. Everything was education, 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 right? And the media would cheer when housing prices would go up, and they would cheer when the price of the cost of living would go up, and the stock market would go up. And everything was about inflation. Everything was about increasing numbers, right? We need the numbers to get higher because that means we're wealthier. When actually quite the opposite is true, right? If your bills are going up, then you're poorer, not richer. The logic doesn't make any sense. So everything was about GDP. GDP was the holy grail. It was a god. It was the golden calf that we all worshipped. And it's mostly inflation. It's mostly money just circling around the drain and not really creating wealth, not really fulfilling Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you're familiar with that, which I hope you are. Just throw it in Google. And the government did not want affordable housing. It did not want the price of housing to go down because then banks make less money on their mortgages and people's home equity would go down and property taxes would go down. And so there are all of these systemic forces that are revolving around housing getting more expensive and people's cost of living going up and essentially just suffocating the entire society in a tsunami of bills, increasing bills. And everything was about business activity. Everything was about growth. Everything was about education and student loans, and nothing was really about creation. Nothing was really about production. No one ever stepped back and said, hey, why don't we create? Why don't we focus on creating? Why don't we focus on cooperation in creation? That never occurred to anyone. It was always status. It was always your title, your social status within your stupid social network, and elitism, really. Because these people have fake careers and they're paid with fake money, and they pay all of their inflated bills to make the fake GDP numbers higher. And that's the world that we lived in for decades, and the world that is crumbling at such a rapid pace with COVID and the Trump administration and arcology and anarcho-monarchism coming at the greater society at breakneck speed. And so my agenda is very, very different. It is quite the opposite. My agenda is to have the best world possible for my kids and to have very low bills for all of you. And why, might you ask? Well, because I'm a nice guy. I don't know. I like people being happy. I like people being satisfied. I like being the hero, right? If when you're in a crowd, you have no problem being the villain, especially if you need to be the villain just to get along. But if you're by yourself, if you're in a David versus Goliath type of situation, you want to be the hero, don't you? Don't you want to be David? Everyone wants to be David. So that's kind of my agenda. And I'm only one person, right? So if I get $1 million a year, I am more than satisfied. I am, my cup spilleth over. But in a democracy, in a democratic scenario, since the middle class is so huge, since the middle class is so large, their greed is essentially insatiable. Their greed is infinite because there's tens of millions of them or hundreds of millions of them. So they all want $250,000 a year, or they all want $500,000 a year. They all want mansions, etc., etc., etc. If you're trying to satiate the greed of one person, it's actually quite easy to do. but it is impossible to satiate the greed of a billion people. And this is what democracies create, and this is the world that we all were trapped in for decades, for so long. People talk about conspiracies so much lately, and conspiracies really are just a group of people with the same agenda, with aligned goals, and they all conspire with each other, and they all conspire to fulfill those goals, almost without even communicating directly, without a formulated plan, right? This is the agenda. This is the plan. This is the conspiracy. And the New World Order that we're trying to escape from, the agenda is to enrich and empower the democratic middle class at the expense of everything and everyone else. That's what the democracy is all about. The middle class was above the working class. If the working class gets crushed, that is a worthy sacrifice. If the environment gets crushed, that is a worthy sacrifice. If we abandon all of our ideals and if we submit ourselves to a global kleptocratic oligarchy in the process, as long as the middle class is getting a piece of that pie, then that is the agenda and that is the conspiracy. And I wish to flip the script to go in a completely different direction, because my agenda is a completely different agenda. It is one of fulfilling Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And we're working at the bottom first, and we're working our way up to the top. That's my agenda. I don't give a shit about GDP. I don't give a shit about the middle class. I don't give a shit about democracy. I'm all about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That's my focus. And our wealth will increase. Our real wealth will increase as we meet those objectives and as we work our way higher up the pyramid, up that hierarchy. And our GDP might go down because our bills go down, and our GDP might go down because our taxes go down and our rent goes down. But who gives a shit, really? Like some MBA from Yale, he's gonna be all worried? Some Wall Street banker who reads the Wall Street Journal, he's gonna be real upset because numbers are going down instead of going up. I mean, that ultimately doesn't matter, because your rent is, down by 75%. You don't need to pay for your car insurance or car payment anymore. And so, if you may have noticed, when you change your agenda, you change the entire world, because an agenda really is just an idea, and ideas, or a collection of ideas, combine to create a culture, to create a nation, to create a mindset. And the mindset we were currently or previously living in was so corrosive and so destructive, and it was a zero-sum game that didn't manifest the requirements for human existence, really, for an efficient and fulfilling human existence. So my agenda is to move everyone towards a form of living and a form of organization that does meet the needs of human existence and does meet those needs as efficiently as possible. And what I'm saying might seem so obvious and so simple, but it's really not. Going 10 years back into the past and trying to explain to someone what the New World Order is like trying to explain what water is to a fish. They'll never understand you because they're completely submerged and they're completely saturated in the agenda, in the culture and conspiracy of the day. It's all they've ever known. So when you say, why don't we create a world that meets people's physical needs? People are like, well, huh? What do you mean? Like, go to college? What do you mean? Get a career? Get that 9 to 5? sit on that train to that long ass commute to that office. Like they don't know what you mean by working outside of the system to independently meet the needs of the community on your own. It's not in their vocabulary. It's not in their mindset, because public school has conditioned you into the agenda and conditioned you into the conspiracy since a very, very young age, especially the media and the Associated Press and all of these news organizations. That's their entire job, is to brainwash and program the public. Kind of like what I'm doing right now. But yeah, so archaeology itself meets the physiological needs of the general population, and the social contract meets the safety needs of the general population. And then love and belonging just comes from actually having your needs met and having your bills lowered, and your kind of the communal living, the communal construction of the residential interiors. And then esteem is just, general pride in the harmony that we've all created for ourselves and for each other, and living in truth, living in harmony with the earth, and saving precious resources for our children and grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren all the way down the line, because they deserve the level of prosperity and wealth that we have all enjoyed, or more. If we do more with less, we can preserve all of this wealth and all of this prosperity for 1,000 years, maybe. We'll see. I don't know. It's a very, very lofty goal. I don't, maybe we'll be able to do it, maybe not. But then self-actualization is the sum of all of those, right? As well as, I guess, fulfilling the golden rule would be part of self-actualization, and having strong values with equality under the law, and all of these beautiful things that the New World Order is not really focused on. They talk such a big game, don't they? And then you go out into the lived environment, into reality, after you turn off the television, and it's kind of just a shithole slave society, isn't it? And no one likes to talk about that. No one likes to tell the truth, but it is. And my agenda is to burn it all down and raise up a glorious castle out of the ashes. Thank you, and have a nice day. If you want to see a new and better world come to fruition, as I do, then like, share, and subscribe. You can find an incredible amount of math, knowledge, and 3D renders by clicking on the channel name. And remember, we need you to help spread this vision across the internet for all to see and become familiar with. Let us build this new world together.